We're going to call the meeting to order. So, we have everybody here but Randy today.
Yep, Randy will not be here tonight.
So, everybody got an agenda. We also have 2 additional items in personnel. Do I have a motion to approve? So moved. Motion by Mark.
Second.
A second by Lou. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Okay, approve and correct minutes from the June 9th, 2015 regular meeting. I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes.
Second.
A second by Cheryl. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Okay. Financial reports. We first have the treasurer's report. Any?
I was wondering, Bob, could we, I know I've seen that we have the building construction fund is now on there.
Yep.
Is there any way that we could have the technology on there too?
I don't know why we wouldn't be able to have that.
Okay. It'd be just a nice glance to see once where we're at and stuff.
Sure.
That technically
If there's a reason why I can't, then I'll send an email to the board, just to inform the board.
But that goes on next year, correct?
It starts this next year, so but
This
it,
first of July.
yes,
Perfect.
yeah, so
Good idea.
it would be the next one, and it would work just the way the rest of our budgets do, so you'd see how much is spent each year as we go through.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the treasurer's report? So moved. Motion by Mark. Second by Lou. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Okay, audit and approval of bills. Cheryl, item 1 and 2.
I had a chance to get in this afternoon and check the bills over, and everything seems to be normal. I'm seeing the expenditures now for the building renovations and things that we're doing to improve and working on the odds and ends from that. I'm sure Bobby has more to tell you about that later. And a few little things for the stadium. Other than that, everything was normal school business.
Good.
I would move that we approve.
Item 1 and 2.
Yes.
I'll second that motion. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Okay, consent agenda. Review and consider approval of the following athletic assignment for the 2015-16 school year. Assistant girls basketball coach of Brookwards.
We give a little bit of background in the addendum, that would be all I have to add.
I'll make a motion that we approve.
Second that.
And I have a second by Kella. Any further discussion?
How many applicants did we have, Max?
1 complete.
And she has plenty of background for what we need?
I believe she's qualified, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Okay, we are on business. Review and consider authorizing district use of E-rate dollars. Could you just, for the camera, just give a brief description of E-rate dollars?
E-rate dollars, it's an opportunity for us to get additional dollars based on per pupil. It'll come in around 145,000, and the E-rate dollars enable us to work on an infrastructure in our buildings, and will allow us to, the federal government would pay 70%, and Paynesville would pay 30% of the dollars that we would use.
Perfect.
Jim, I thought Jim was going to come by, and he's not here, so I think 1 or 2 things we can move with that in case something is happening and he'll still make it. Otherwise, we could certainly, I think for this approval, there's a couple things we were looking at that we had discussed. One is the line between the buildings. That was one of the things that we're looking at. But we don't have dollars at this point. You know, we probably won't know for sure for about a month, based on a talk that I had with Kevin from Tech Check today. They've sent out a list of things that we need to get them. So we have to correct the form that we sent out, or at least I shouldn't say correct. They want more information than we originally had sent them. So we're putting that information together now. We'll send that back to them, and then it'll take a little bit more weeks. So we're assuming 3 to 4 weeks before we find out. So the board can certainly do a motion to approve that we use the dollars once we get them. At the same time, they can certainly say, let's just table it until we're awarded the dollars too. So I think there is plenty of time. This is not one of those pieces that there's a rush, because even once we get the dollars, for sure, I believe that we'll have them for at least 2 years. I worry a little bit more than that. So let's say we are approved, we would get the dollars, we would hold them until we use them, or I should say, we wouldn't have to use them. They would be there at least for 2 years. I do worry a little bit more about things changing in the federal government, and I probably wouldn't want to hold things more than that. So I think it's really up to the board on where they want to go with this at this particular time. Like I said, I think we have time. There's no rush.
Well, we table it till we get the money.
I am completely fine with that. I don't have an issue at all.
And I think that would probably work, then we would know exactly how many dollars we would be getting, and then we would know how much we would still be responsible for, because there are 30% that we're still responsible for putting into that.
Yes, yes, we
project.
I think it'll be around 145,000 that we get, so it would be 30% of that we would need to pay. It's certainly a great opportunity for us to upgrade our infrastructure, whether it be for the line or not. That's something that we have to decide on the needs and what we should do in order to do it. Really, I think those dollars should be used to plan for our future development in technology.
Okay, any other discussion? I guess my only thoughts were, if we need to authorize the use of the $8 to make sure the application processed accordingly, and then if we had approval of the expense, which we have to approve anyway, because we don't know what the dollars are, doesn't really make any difference. We would authorize the $8. We're crazy not to apply, right?
I would think so. As far as I know, I don't think at this point, at least what I've heard, that we need an authorization from the board to apply. We've done the process, paperwork is
We can just
in.
let it ride.
They have sent us some additional information that they're requesting. We'll get them that information, and then we should find out whether or not they're authorized. I would be very surprised if we didn't get the dollars in the end. The way that it looks like it's going, I think that we will end up with those dollars. But like I said, there is not an initial hurry for us to have to do something with it. And, you know, and if Jim and Jonah do make it to the meeting, then I'd say we should still probably see their slideshow regardless, just as an informational piece attached to this.
Everybody? Okay, then let's just move to number 2. We're not gonna authorize anything.
No
at this
action
point.
at this time.
Okay, number 2, review and consider approval of the 2015-16 school year revenue and expenditure budget.
You did get a copy of that last time. The only real change that we made is that we did add the piece for the technology that goes with that. And we did it up at the top and at the bottom. The top will show us that we're getting those dollars. It also shows that we're going to spend them, so it shows it in the revenue that we collect the money, and then in the expenditures it shows that we're spending all of it, because that's the intent for this year. Then down at the bottom it shows that it's 0 right now because we haven't collected any dollars at this particular time. So there's no carryover, and that's why it's zeros down at the bottom, because there's carryover. Now, at the end of this next year, we may have some carryover, you know, depending on what the technology committee and the needs of the district are. So that would show up in the following year then as carryover. That is, for sure, if we don't have any at the end of this year, we will have some at the end of the next year, because my recommendation will be is that we start to save, because we've already using about 63,000 of this for our rotation for our staff computers. But the student rotation is much more expensive. It'll be more like 180,000 or so. So recommendation will be for those years we save for that for 3 years down the road, so every year there's a carryover, and you'll start to see it build up to the point where we've got enough money, so we don't have to borrow for the rotation for the students. So it'll start to show up in the following years as carryover. So other than that, everything is exactly the same, so unless there's some questions.
Any other questions? Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve the proposed 2015 school year revenue and expenditure budgets.
I'll second it.
We have a second by Heidi. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Okay, review and consider authorizing the superintendent to obtain bids for dairy and bakery products for the 2015-16 school year, with bids to be opened August 4th, 2015 at 10 o'clock a.m.
This is a typical thing that we've done every year for our baking goods and our milk products.
Do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, I have a motion from Kellen.
Second.
I have a second from Cheryl. To authorize the superintendent to obtain the bids. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Review and consider approval of health and safety line item budget and reaffirm approval of District 741 Health and Safety Policy Number 807.
Again, this is an annual thing that we need to do, although there are changes coming because of the legislature this year. In following years, we will need to do a 10-year plan, and we'll collect our dollars in a different manner, so as that all shakes out and stuff, but before we get information on that. But at least for this year, our health and safety and our deferred maintenance remain the same. So we do need to do both of these particular items.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve? I have a motion from Lou.
Second.
I have a second from Cheryl. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Review and consider approval of the 2015-16 secondary student parent handbook.
I think the board has seen that. Lori did present to the board on any changes. The board was given an opportunity to call her for any questions that she has. So we're just looking for approval.
I have to say, I kind of liked it where they had that reference to the policies on the back of the book. I think really a good thing. It makes it so it's a little more readable. I'll make a motion that we approve the student parent handbook. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
A second from Cheryl. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Review and consider approval of St. Cloud State University. Hey, good job there. I did know that one because I graduated from there. But student teaching agreement. A student teaching agreement.
I have read through the agreement, and it looks fine. And I think in order for us to get it, it's a new policy that they've had for us to sign off on it. So
We have a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion from Mark.
I'll second that.
A second from Kellen. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Review and consider approval of modifying 2015-16 school calendar.
as the board is aware, the legislature in all their wisdom waited until their special session was over before they approved the ability for a school district to start before Labor Day. They have given their official blessing to that. So with that, I told the board that we would come back. I think there are some benefits to starting school early. The main benefit is that we do have students, for, in this case, 4 more days before the state test, which I think is important. You know, I thought about this a long time. I hate to wait as long as we did. That's the only thing I don't like about this. If the legislature had made the decision about the school calendar earlier, I can tell you that I would have recommended to the board. All of the districts around us now, I believe, are going to, I don't know what happened at SOC, but they were going to go back to their board, I think yesterday. I'm not, but at their next board meeting to do this, and I know West Central Ed is all on an early calendar now. And know that Albany is, Melrose is, I believe Sauk will be, I think all of our surrounding districts are. You know, the teachers did get a chance to look at this and beforehand, and there's some pieces that I don't like about this that I wish were a little smoother, but it is what it is. One of the pieces, if you look in November, we end our quarter on the 2nd, but the teachers don't have their workday until that Friday. The problem is that it doesn't work real well if I put the workday right after that. The kids come in for Monday, don't go to school Tuesday, then come back on Wednesday. It's not educationally sound. The teachers really don't like to have, they want the days in a row as much as possible. This does allow us to get done. One of the other problems with the calendar was graduation. You have, and I know that we did a survey which was kind of split for all of it. The graduation then, if you do it you can kind of either do it before Memorial Weekend or during Memorial Weekend, which we've never done, which may cause some issues, or you wait an extra week until the graduation is. Talking with Lori and a few other people for this particular calendar, we thought, and I did check with the state to make sure it doesn't have a financial issue with us, is that we move it before the end of the school year. All right, so they would graduate then on May 22nd instead of after the week after they're done. So that parents can still have Memorial Weekend to do what they need to do. If they wanted to have graduation parties that weekend or whatever, they could certainly do that. But we thought waiting an extra week going into the end of June or the first week in June wasn't what we wanted either. You know, after thinking about this a long time, it is my recommendation that we accept it. I feel bad, and I would certainly apologize to any parents that this has caused an issue for. But I am going to point back to the state. If the state would have made this decision earlier, we would have adopted this calendar in the first place. If we do decide to change it, I think we'll need to do a school reach or something like that to try to get this notice out to the parents as quick as we can so that they know that the calendar's changed, it's set, it'll be on the website. I'm assuming, Matt, we can do that by tomorrow, get it on there if the board decides to modify the calendar and go with this one instead. I don't know, we've got at least one teacher here. Thoughts on that, Tom?
I know that over the summer, there's been lots of discussion that everybody around us is starting early. We've got, you know, besides that, we've got an earlier start this year to athletics, and waiting until after Labor Day, I think, would just put us that much further behind in everything, with the differences with the testing and the calendar opening up for those. The more days that we can have as an instruction days before the testing window opens, it's going to be better for us. And I think that in looking at it, if we wait until after Labor Day with all the surrounding schools going before us, I think we're asking for problems with kids. What are they going to do? And it just makes more sense.
And with our students that are in alternative programs and for our ALC and stuff, they do intend to start before Labor Day, so it also causes an issue at that point. And again, I do feel bad for not being able to set this sooner, but it was out of our control.
At first I was dead against this thing. And I was dead against it not so much on when you started for all these reasons on the test and everything. I didn't think it was a very good idea to have graduation on Memorial Weekend. That's an issue. It's personal. To give the kids an extra shot at getting a summertime job by having the graduation a week early, I think that is a pretty good base for this. Yes, it has all those other things, but these kids are going to get a shot a week earlier to land some summertime jobs, earn money to go to college. I think it's actually a pretty good deal. And the only people we're truly going to be in trouble with are those that have scheduled their vacation for this year. And they would have had to schedule that vacation as of 2 weeks ago when we did the other calendar, right? So we're off 2 weeks.
I know there's a number of people that are waiting for today to happen because they've asked me and I said we will know one way or another at the end of this week.
The only thing I see maybe families having an issue with is the Friday before the Labor Day weekend, having to be in school. You know, they were planning on leaving early, but that's the only issue.
And what I've tended to find is that if a family wants to go and leave early anyway on that day, they will probably go. The only issue then that becomes is for perfect attendance.
Right.
It really doesn't cause any other issues besides that. And we did look at possibly giving that Friday off. I did spend considerable time looking at that. The problem is by move S, different, it causes different issues later on in the year. So we did look at the possibility of trying to get that Friday off, but then it really mixed up some other things. So it was 6 of one, half dozen the other pieces in the end.
And did you say the Resort Association is kind of okay with this?
I
'Cause that's how it
thought-
started in the first place.
I've talked with the main resort owner here, and his particular issue is just not starting in August. Now, I think even this time when I talked with him, he'd have been fine with us going at the last day of August. So, believe me, I would have much preferred to start on Monday and end it on Thursday. The legislature took that away from us by saying that we couldn't start until September 1st.
Yeah, we have to be careful of that. Those people pay taxes too.
Well, we want to work with
We
everybody.
don't want to have the dollars come in.
Truly, from my point of view, if we can start at least the 1st of September every year, I'm not unhappy with that. I think there's certainly a disagreement, and there's lots of opinions on the benefits of starting early. Personally, I believe that it would be nice to start early, but we all need to work and live in the same sandbox, so we want to all work together.
Any other discussion? So
Make a motion that we accept the earlier calendar.
we have a motion from Lou and
I'll
a
second.
second from Cheryl.
So really, it's a
To accept the early
modification,
calendar.
so we don't have to cancel the other one, we're just modifying the calendar that we had to be this one.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Okay. Review and consider approval of resolution to amend the section 125 flexible benefits plan.
This is just, in the past, our healthcare plan did not include an HSA. It does now. So because of that, we need to do this particular piece and add it to our plan. So it's just one of those things, just because we've added a new program to it.
So moved. We have a motion from Mark.
Second.
We have a second from Kella. Any further discussion? Okay, this is a resolution, so Linda, you can take the
All right.
roll call.
Kella? Aye. Mark?
Aye.
Heidi? Aye. Lou?
Aye.
Bruce?
Aye.
Cheryl?
Aye.
It's passed. Okay, now, can we stop here and get number 1 in while we're still in business? You think that's okay?
No, I think they should wait till the end.
Okay, so I think there's kind of a majority going to say that's working right now. So are you guys
Getting
gonna,
out of place.
are you guys gonna speak from here and then should we just move up?
If-
I think we're gonna show.
And they can use this mic, so you might want to.
Okay. And Jim, you have another stand, I see. I think another mic, so we have everybody listening on this, and we want to make sure they can hear everybody properly.
Right front center. So while Joan is getting that, I'll hold it up. I gotta put my password in there. Look at that. Kevin came in and presented.
Yes, Kevin did.
Yeah, I guess there was a little bit of confusion with that. So, hopefully with this. maybe that. What we're looking at is.
Oh, man. See if you're awake, Jim.
We just woke everybody up at home, too.
So what we're looking at, the situation with the network that we have right now, we've got 2 buildings. You're sitting in the secondary building, the elementary sitting out there 1.7 miles away or something like that. And we've got fiber between them right now. What we're looking at doing, because of the increase in the bandwidth and the usage on the internet and the network in general, is to increase that bandwidth between the 2 buildings. And I guess that's what Kevin started out doing the other time he was here, but as we discussed earlier, Kevin's more of a salesman than you'll see one of the bids that he got involved in as well. I guess before we get started, we should talk about size and speed and just cover a few definitions here. What's a byte? Because we're going to be talking about megabytes and gigabytes and that sort of thing. So a byte is just a measurement of data that's passed on the network, whether it's the internet or inside the building. Bandwidth is where that data is transferred, or the size of the pipe that the data is transferred on.
It wasn't me, Jim.
So that's transferring. I should have put it on side. That's transferring data, whether it's putting up websites or whether it's video or audio or what have you. Transferring it from point A to point B. One of the terms that's used quite a bit is gigabits. 10 gigabits per second. It's the speed of the data. And you'll see later on in the presentation, that's kind of what we're shooting at. So we use that as an example. You'll see the terms megabytes, gigabytes. Just remember that megabytes are smaller than gigabytes. Actually, 1,000 megabytes is worth 1 gigabyte. So that's the difference in the size there. So keep that in mind. Secondary building, we don't have really a big transmission problem with here. This is where we get off and get on the internet. But the elementary school sitting out there, it's got to travel across this fiber that we want to increase the speed in, or the bandwidth, and that's where the potential problem is right now.
All our servers are housed over here too. So everyone at elementary school has to come over here to get stuff off the servers or whatever.
If they want to do pretty much anything, they got to come through this building over that fiber. And that's the concern. And we Jonah did a little picture presentation here to kind of give you an example of the size. Here's the 0.5 gigabyte, here's the 1 gig, and there's a 2 gig over there. He used it, which I think is a pretty good indication of, he's using roads, okay? Because basically what we're looking at doing is adding some more roads between the two buildings. That one on the end is 2 gigabytes per second. That's currently what we have between the two buildings. So keep that in mind. What we really want to shoot for, though, is 10 gigs between the buildings. So we want to add a few more lanes on the freeway. And that is a visual representation of that. Joe, anything to add to this one? I don't see the Spitfire on
Just because there's a lot of lanes doesn't mean they're all open too. A lot of those lanes are going to be full of traffic or cars going back and forth between the entry and the
Yeah,
second.
you take a look. I just got back from LA, and the roads weren't this open, trust me. There were cars on it. There was definitely data being transferred. What type of traffic goes between the two buildings? We talked a little bit about it earlier. All internet traffic, because this is how they get out. That building gets out and gets on the internet. All their document, or most of their document storage is over in this building. Every time they log on to the internet or to the network over there, they get
They authenticate over
they
here.
need to authenticate to a server over in this building. Our print server, any type of printing they have to do, they have to get the okay from our print server here. Jonah and I do some imaging. That we primarily use this portion of it. If computer needs to be redone.
If Bob screws his computer up, we have to fix it.
Yeah, and that's,
Not that that would ever happen.
no. And there was one other thing. Oh, DNS servers. DNS, it's a domain name service. What DNS does is, when somebody over in that building, or actually this building for purposes as well, if they're plunk in on their web browser an address, what DNS does is that request for that address goes to a DNS server. and the DNS server says, I'll go out to the internet and find that address for you. So what ends up happening is Chad over at the elementary, he plugs in this internet access, or this address, it goes to our DNS server over here, and if it doesn't know where that address is, it goes out on the internet and asks other servers, DNS servers, where's this address, where's this address, where's this, oh, I've got it over here, it's right there. It sends it back to our DNS server, sends it back to Chad. Nice thing about DNS though is once it finds that location, it remembers it. So, but every time it will check with the DNS server, and again, it's got to come across that line to do that.
And as we upgrade our cameras system too, that would
Yeah.
also be something that would be
It
more
would,
that.
yeah, and that's coming up a little later. The cameras kind of entered into it. So what happened, how did we get to this point? When I first got here, so I'll give you a little history of the bandwidth growth between the two buildings. In '97 is when that fiber was put in. And you gotta remember, there's two types of fiber. There's short haul fiber, or fiber that's really meant to go short distances, and there's long haul fiber. And what they put in '97 between the two buildings is short haul fiber. And come to find out, it's primarily to do the phones. So when they decided to put the network on it, I have no idea, but they are using it for that as well. I was put in at a cost of 65 grand. At that time, we had about 50 staff over there that were on the network, and then we had a lab of 30 computers. That was 80 units over there, clamoring for bandwidth. And at that point, we had a 100 meg highway between the two. You gotta remember, megabits were smaller than gigabits. And primarily all they used it to do was access their email over here and to get out and surf the web. How they put it back in '97, right? The addition to Lab 157, Deb Gilman added a 30-unit lab over at the elementary in 2006.
Screw that one up.
And so that added some more stuff over there, and it also added some applications that happened at that time. And you'll see that, yeah, typing and math and science were either on a server that needed to be accessed, or they were online. So that kind of, and that was all done off the computers, and so that increased the bandwidth demand. And to accommodate that, we upped it from 100 meg to 300 meg at that time. JMC, was our student information system, was added about this time, and that was all housed in our network in this building. Payroll and HR, we had, up until this point, the server in-house. In this year, they went online, and now they're housing it over in St. Cloud. And Linda and that whole crew, they use that pretty much every day. Especially the payroll part. Teachers really like that.
Don't touch the smart.
Okay. I'm not that smart. So the payroll part of it's real important to the teachers. And then state mandated testing started coming on. You probably read about some of that this spring and how well that went throughout the country. So that was all online. They started going from the paper to online testing. And from there we go to our wireless network in 2012. We put in wireless in both buildings. Went out and bought a crap load of iPads and Chromebooks and mobile devices for the students and staff, which they use on a regular basis. I increased the number of units from what we have 80 back then to over 200 at this particular point. Again, we needed to adjust the speed between the buildings. We upped it to 2 gig between the elementary and here. Typing and all that stuff was still online. They were still doing that stuff either online or off the server. So that didn't decrease. Still doing JMC, state testing. payroll's still on. We're looking at security cameras, maybe one security system for both buildings. And that's really prompted this because that would up the bandwidth as well. And if we did institute that, it's going to increase the bandwidth because it's going to be an IP solution.
Eventually,
Online
that's where we're
solution.
gonna have to go. but-
At some point, yeah, some point. Anyway, that's kind of what prompted it back then. YouTube became real big. Is that when Google bought them, Joe, back then?
I think so.
Yeah, because then YouTube just blew up, and the YouTube's got the videos, and the teachers use that quite a bit. And there's some bad stuff on there, but there's some really good educational videos as well. So that kind of came into fruition right there. And then we're just looking at a couple of years ago, we went to Google Apps for Education for not only the staff, but the students as well. It's Google provides our email, they provide storage for our documents, there's sharing documents on there. It's just a real good tool, and I'm sure a lot of you guys use that at home. So the kids, when they get home, they can access their documents. It's not like, hey, I forgot my homework at school. They can actually work at it from home and send it to the teachers from there as well. So the number of units, again, every year, both buildings add more and more mobile devices. That growth of 300 plus is primarily mobile devices. We really haven't added any workstations, but that's going to increase and continue to increase. Bandwidth still remains at 2 gig, even though we've got 100 plus more units. This stuff stayed the same. This they're using more and more of. Don't touch it.
Don't touch.
More and more of. You'll see it in classrooms if you've ever visited a classroom. Future projected demands. The use of that, there's more and more teachers getting on board to use Google Apps for education, not only the email portion of it, but the document storage, the document sharing as well. Just a real big time saver. Don, you use that, don't you?
Yeah, and the biggest thing that's coming out now is Google Classroom, which is a whole management system that is, I've played with it some and we'll use it pretty extensively next year. And it puts everything in one place for you. But it's through Google, and of course it takes more bandwidth.
And talking about growth, it's primarily going to be the mobile devices or wireless devices. I don't really see us putting in more hard labs. Bandwidth we know is going to increase. We know we're going to add more devices. These are givens. It's going to happen. We're still going to go with Google on this, and basically you just can see an increase of usage. You can see an increase of need for more bandwidth. And we have several options to remedy this. The first option is we put in our own fiber. We talked about the short haul fiber and the long haul fiber. The short haul fiber that's in there right now, you'll see it in a couple of screens later that we're going to top out at what our transfer rate can be. What we're proposing is to put in that good fiber that will handle the large bandwidth that we're looking at and the large bandwidth that we're probably going to need in the future. We did get 2 quotes from 2 different companies to put that in. They both came in right around, I think you have it in your packets, they both came in right around 90 grand to do that. There's something at the federal government level that's called E-rate. And what the E-rate is, it was instituted in 1996 when the Telecommunications Act came out. What the federal government does is tax or put fees on all the telecommunication companies. They pay it into the federal government, and then they divvy it out to schools and libraries for internet access. And that's what E-rate is. Currently, we qualify for a 70% E-rate discount. And E-rate changes from year to year. I remember back in '03, we bought those big white Emacs, I don't know if you remember those things. You could buy hardware at that particular time and they cover the 70%. Well, now this year, it's just infrastructure or network stuff. You don't get the discount on software or hardware. So that's why we're looking at it fairly soon, because they can change their mind. So given that 30, basically we just end up paying for 30% of that 90. E-rate funding is only guaranteed for 2 years. It might be gone at the whim of the Congress or the whim of whoever the new president is. Or it might change from, okay, we've got enough infrastructure and network stuff, let's fund hardware instead or software instead. Yeah, there's transmitter receivers at either end that we're going to need in order to get that 10 gig. That's at a cost of $6,000. We would be eligible for E-rate on that too, which would bring it down to about $2,000. So you're looking at 32 grand to do that. The additional cost is high, but really there's no ongoing cost unless, you know, one of the transmitters crap out or somebody cuts our fiber, and normally the insurance company takes care of that. This type of fiber, this good type of fiber is scalable. It doesn't care what you have on either end of it. It could be that small 100 meg. You can transmit that 300 meg, the 2 gig that we're doing now, the 10 gig that we want to do, 20 gig, 100 gig. It doesn't care. It's agnostic. It doesn't care. Oh, I thought I put that in. Another option, there's Mediacom's probably got the most fiber in the ground in the city right now. So we checked with them to see if they had any dark fiber that we could lease. You know, why should we stick it in there if we can lease it at a decent rate? And they did have a solution between the 2 buildings. There was no installation fee, which was nice, but the ongoing cost really hurt me. $3,700 for that 10 gig that we're looking at, just to lease that fiber. They would put in the equipment on either end, the transmitter receivers. They would maintain it, but at a cost of that. And we need to sign a 5-year lease on it too. Yeah, here it is. You know, it adds up over the years. So you got a $32,000 solution that could go 5 years, or a $225,000 solution. That is scalable as well. We could put 100 gig on if we want. We could put whatever we want on there, but normally more bandwidth means more money. So, and I think they would jump at the chance right now and put it in as soon as they could in order to start generating some income. I believe that's how most of those companies work. Or, like I said, we've got fiber in the ground already, the bad kind or the short haul kind. We're using right now the 2 gig, 2 1 gig pairs. They actually have to use 2 fibers to do the transmitting, the transmit and the receive. We actually have 12 fibers or 6 pairs available that are dark. And we could add another 6 gig, combine it with a 2 gig, and go up to 8 gig for a cost of, fiber's already in place to do this. It is available for a cost of $750 per gig. So that's basically for the transmit receive units. Okay, that's $22.70 is the full cost on it. $756 again would qualify for E-rate on that. So that would increase our bandwidth to 8 gig. Yeah, we're pretty darn close to 10 to where we want to be. And with the E-rate funding and the discount, in order to add those 6 extra, you're looking at about at that cost. That's the downside right there. We just topped out. We have no more fiber available. We can't run 10 gig on this short haul fiber just won't work. 1 gig's all it's gonna take. Is there another one there, Joe? Yeah. The solution is, yeah, it's gonna be okay for a while, but just, I guarantee you, somebody's gonna have this conversation again somewhere down the road.
Well, one thing too with this, we have so much more equipment on either end with this solution, and there's just more points of failure as well.
Yeah. So if we go to, if we add, right now we've got 4 devices, 2 on either end. Do that 2 gig. If we added 6 more gig, do the math. Come here, college kid. So,
12.
16?
12.
Oh, 16 total devices that
Yeah,
transmit
somewhere
and
around there.
receive. So you got another 12 devices.
It's summertime, my mind's off.
4 points of failure. Yeah, it's been off the wrong time. So anyway, that's it's a solution, and we could probably get it done this summer. Then somebody asked about wireless. Why don't we just shoot wireless between the 2 buildings? Well, we got up on top of that building. You can't. I have no idea where the elementary is. I have no idea. Too many. You have to talk to a lot of your neighbors to cut some trees down in order to do that, because it's got to be line of sight. And really, in order to get that, you're going to have towers on both buildings. And the downside to it is, you got to maintain those towers as well. I don't know, here, you're close to the airport, you might have to put lights on. I don't know, I don't know what the FAA would say about that. Weather conditions, when I was with cable TV company, we did a lot of this, and when it rained real hard or it was foggy in the morning, you lost connection. And the transmission rate right now, in order to go wireless, tops out at about 3/4 of 1 gig, or 700 megabits per second, which is 3 times less than what we're doing right now with what we've got in place. That, I'm sure, will increase somewhere down the road, but we'd actually be taking a step back as far as bandwidth if we did that. I don't think it's a real viable solution, but it's one that we need to look at. And then 4, we just don't do anything. And we do know this, that people are going to use it more, the network, whether it's between the 2 buildings or whether they go through the building and go to the internet. We know we're going to have more devices over there using or getting on the network or the internet, and it's going to fill up. Like I said, you ever go down to Twin Cities in the morning, they fill those lanes. It doesn't matter whether they build 2 more, they're still going to fill them. They build 4 more. You get out to LA, they got 10 lanes, they fill them all. I mean, if you build it, they will come. And nothing's really going to change. Staff still has to come over here, the students still have to come over here to get their mail, get their documents. The more they do that, the more the network's going to slow down. For a website to get set up, that's going to take longer. Could take a lot more class time if that's what they're actually doing, or lab time in order for the students to get things done what they need to over there. It didn't get to the point where teachers just won't want to use it. It's just too much hassle. It's not going to work, and that might be a viable solution too. We just get a lot of people that are discouraged and stay off the internet. Well, then we have less traffic, but I don't think that's a desirable outcome. Yeah, I mean, we can limit the number of devices. There's a number of other bad options that we could do. We could limit the number of devices that are on there. We could restrict or throttle down the bandwidth if we had to. Time of day, we've got a filter that'll do all that for us. It'll manage bandwidth. It'll say these people can't have access, or these people can have access, but it's going to be real slow. We can do that. And then online state testing, they have a formula that you have to plug in, Don, right? In order to qualify to, to make sure that your network's up to snuff in state testing, so
And it
you don't get blamed for their failure.
And the formula changes every year.
Yeah, it increases. Yeah, we're just not gonna meet, we just don't feel we're gonna meet future bandwidth needs based on all what we talked about. And yeah, we talked about the frustration and, you know, they're not gonna use the technology if they get frustrated with, especially the older teachers, or less inclined to use the technology teachers. Again, it's gonna take up valuable education time. The YouTubes and the streaming video and streaming audio is really gonna take up a lot of bandwidth. The more they use that, the slower it's gonna get. This option is let's kick the can down the street and let somebody else deal with it. So, questions, thanks.
We've increased the bandwidth twice already.
3 times.
3 times, okay. How do we do that with the same fiber in place?
On the same fiber, the only way we can increase bandwidth is to use, with the existing fiber, is to use those other 6 or 12 dark fibers now. So we can actually add 6 more of those.
Yeah, you're just adding more equipment on either end.
Yeah.
Okay, it's the
That's
equipment
all.
on either end, it's not actually
It's
putting
the-
new fiber in.
No, it's the equipment. The first option to put new fiber in, like I said, once you get that single mode fiber in, it doesn't care what you put on it. And then you're pretty much set for any type of growth that you want down the road.
You're the future Lucy.
Don, are we the only ones that are we light years ahead doing online testing, or is every school in the state doing online testing?
Online testing for the state with
Yeah.
MCAs is mandatory.
So everybody in the state's
Everybody in
doing
the state
it?
is doing it. It is also a situation where we're able to accommodate and do things with the labs. The one thing that we did run into was, I don't know if you ever saw our testing calendar, but we were booked pretty solid. And we didn't start at the very beginning of the window because everybody wants to teach as much as they can before we give the test. And one of the last days that we had problems coming from Pearson was 2 days before the window was going to close, and we still had science tests to give. And since the state said since the window was open so long, they weren't going to give us any more days at the end. So we were doing a whole lot of scrambling in the last 2 days of the window for the high school science test. And science has a little bit longer window to give. And there were a lot of schools in the same spot that we were. But it is part of the waiver, and it gives us, we could request for individual students to do it paper pencil, but part of the waiver to the federal government is online.
Correct me
But
if
so
I'm
there were
wrong,
no
but
schools.
they started off with just science online.
Yes.
And then
But
they
there were
added
no
math,
schools.
and then they added reading, and then,
There's no schools in the state that we know of that are doing it any other way but online because it's mandatory.
Right.
Right. So whatever the requirements from the state must not be that high because we must be doing okay on
we have been in the past.
Well, but that's not, the issue is from the buildings. Between,
Yeah.
it.
it's not us going out, it's between the elementary and here, that's the issue. So, everybody else has the same kind of bandwidth outside of the organization, but between the 2 buildings, that's where we're having the issue.
Yeah, the primary, the main issue is the type of fiber that's down there.
Yeah.
Period. If you really want to strip all this crapola away, that's what it is. There's a long fiber in the ground in order to be able to grow. And again, with the timing where, you know, we actually maybe have 32 grand to spend on this, and the government's willing to kick in 70% of all of that, you know, there might not be another opportunity to do this. Just like I missed that opportunity when we were I live on a lake, and they were gonna run sewer through there, and everybody voted it down, and there was this big grant that would have paid for like 80% of it, and I don't wanna pay $2,000 and put that, right across my, well, they took that money and they spent it somewhere else, and 2 years later, I put in a septic system for $6,500, and a lot, and then they went and they actually looked at, checked septic systems, and if it wasn't up to code, you had to pay that $6,000 anyway, so. And I haven't seen them come up with any money to run sewer out there again.
Other questions, Mark?
Any other questions? I guess our recommendation, if it suits the board, is we would like to see the correct fiber put in there. Like I said, any of these other options are viable. Some of them are a little expensive, like the MediaCom solution, and just leaving it the way it is and using our existing fiber, that adds complications to it as well. Or you guys could just let somebody else deal with it. Been through a number of different boards already and a number of different superintendents, and never really been dealt with before. Actually, never had the opportunity to actually get involved in it until Bob got hired here, so appreciate that.
So to replace this fiber, we have to dig up the old and put new in, or do we just hook the old to the end of the new and jerk it through with the pickup?
Good point, good point. Might be an advantage too. No, once that stuff's in the ground, you don't want to mess with it just because it's glass. It's basically glass. So you want to leave it in there. But what we do have, if we do that, is a redundant system. In case that primary fiber that we stick in gets cut, hey, at least we've got 2 gig going between the building. So it could be an advantage in building our redundancy as well between the 2 buildings. A fail-safe, if you would. Jonah, why didn't you bring that up? That was your idea.
That was.
So, again, our recommendation would be that we upgrade the fiber, but whatever you folks decide, well, whoever comes in here after me has to live with it, I guess. Because I'm not going to be here that much longer. Thank you for your time. Yeah, you're really optimistic, aren't you? That's why you're on the board. Yeah.
There you go.
Thank you very much for your time.
Before the 2 of you got here, we tabled the issue of the E-rate till we find out what kind of dollars are coming in. That's all that happened.
Yeah, but I did talk to Kevin today, and
Yeah.
we're looking right after this evening. We're thinking 3, maybe 4 weeks before we find out.
Yeah, that's what this is, I'm sure.
Yeah. So we are keeping cat for a month at least, probably.
Yeah, we can live with that.
Okay. Max, you went to turn that light on.
Thanks again.
Okay. We're all set? Review and consider, let's see. Review and consider approval of Brad Pence to teach the middle school, high school's targeted services remediation program in July. Number 1 personnel.
Yeah, we've been doing this for a number of years. It's paid for targeted services dollars, so it doesn't have an impact on the budget.
So I'll make a motion to approve. Second by Kella. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Review and consider approval of Cal Anderson Special Education Summer Van Driver.
We have a route that we need to run for one of our special ed students.
So I have a motion by Mark,
Second.
second by Cheryl. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Review and consider resignation of Kathleen Hammer, early childhood teacher, effective June 17, 2015.
Much like you see it, we have a resignation.
Okay. We have a motion by Kella,
Second.
a second by Cheryl. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Review and consider increasing Christine Schultz Kiersted's PAWS site supervisor. That's in parentheses for you at home. Time from 5.5 hours per day to 6.5 hours per day on school calendar student contact days.
Yeah, the next 3 of these really deal with the same thing. The PAWS program has been extremely successful. And we need to add more time to plan and prep and get ready for it, if that be right.
Correct. Yep.
So, do we want to accept them one at a time, or should we read all 3 and do all 3 at the same time?
I think that just goes.
Okay, one at a time. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
I have a motion by Heidi, second by me. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Review and consider increasing Lisa Meads, the Community Education Administrative Assistant, time from 6 hours per day to 8 hours per day for the months of June, July, and August.
To move.
I have a motion by Mark,
Second.
a second by Lou. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Review and consider increasing Melody Weber's Community Education Program Coordinator time from 5 hours per day to 6 hours per day in June, July, and August. I have a motion by Heidi,
Second.
second by Kella. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Next, we have Bruce Vanderpool will provide summary of superintendent's evaluation.
Do you want to do 8 and 9 first?
I'm fine with that. We'll go with 8 and 9 first. Okay, review and consider approval to hire Kimberly Hanson for the administrative assistant at the high school effective July 13th, 2015.
Just replacing a position.
Was that by you, Mark?
Yep.
A motion by Mark,
Second.
a second by Cheryl. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Number 9, review and consider approval of maternity leave for Christine Schultz, Kierstead, PAWS Site Supervisor, effective August 17, 2015 through September 25th, 2015.
So moved.
I have a motion by Heidi, second by Kella. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Now we're going to go back to number 7. Last time at the end of the meeting, we had the superintendent's review. We reviewed him on 10 items, which I'm going to mention here. We kind of had ranking of 1 to 5, 5 being high. And so number 1 was leadership for school districts educational programs. Everybody rated our superintendent 3 to 5. So that's just the range. Could have been lots of 5s and some 1, 3. So I'm just giving you the range that we had. Informing school board, number 2, informing school board on activities, programs, practices, and problems. He was rated 4 to 5 by everybody. Does the superintendent explain educational needs to the board? Rated 3 to 5. Does superintendent act as a liaison between community staff and parents? 3 to 5. Does this superintendent oversee district financial operations? This one was 4 to 5. Superintendent interpret employee proposals and employee policies for the school board. I was rated 3 to 5. Does the superintendent institute and update a comprehensive planning process? And that was 2 to 5. Does the superintendent establish good relations with agencies, etc., outside of school? This was unanswered to 5, and I want to explain the unanswered is there were a number of us that don't really know what that relationship is. So the review form we had it on there, so that's where the unanswered comes from. Does the superintendent maintain effective school board superintendent relations by reviewing and upgrading performance? That was unanswered to 5. Does the superintendent delegate responsibilities to employees? And that was unanswered to 5. Again, some of the unanswered because we have board members that don't know what that contact is. In conclusion, Robert Hewitt is doing a good job for us in the district and continues to strive to have the district improve in our efforts to provide a quality education for the students. Okay, then we are then on informational reports. So number 1 is Max Maher, our activities director.
just a few updates. We're now officially online with the Central Minnesota Conference website, so if you're familiar with how the activities used to be on westcentralconference.org, it's now centralmnconference.org. And I'm not 100% sure, but my guess is that anybody who has opted in to be updated when schedules change via text or email will have to re-opt in. I'm asking the company to switch all those over, but they're not always the easiest to deal with. So, but we're able to finally get administrative access to add all of our schedules and stuff on there. Just to be aware, when the activities handbook comes for approval, there'll be a couple recommended changes that I wanted to bring up tonight, so it's not the first time you hear them. The first one came back as a I don't know if it would be a requirement or a recommendation from the Office of Civil Rights. But in our handbook, we have a policy that has to do with how many hours students have to be in class to participate. And we need to add some language that we will accommodate students with disabilities as well. So for instance, if somebody has an ongoing medical appointment that takes them out of school because of some type of disability, that we would adhere to that, which we do anyways, but we need to put that into our policy. The second one would be something that was discussed at an activities committee meeting, which I believe we've already discussed and brought back to the board, but just never acted on until the handbook comes, and that would be changing the academic eligibility policy to be 2 weeks across the board for all activities. And again, and I'll explain that more in detail, or if somebody has questions tonight, I can do that as well. But different sports end at different times of the calendar. So if somebody gets a failing grade, they may miss 12 basketball games because it falls in a bad spot, and only 1 baseball game, or 2 football games, or 3, 4 cross country. We just want to clean that up so it's the same. The Minnesota State High School League does not give a standard that everybody has to follow. It's open-ended, with the exception that it has to be making adequate progress to graduation. So that's up to the school to decide what that is. I've been working this summer with our staff as far as the grounds crew goes, and finding that it's been enjoyable, and we've been able to upkeep our grounds to a new level with some new pressure with a baseball stadium and stuff like that, as well as we've been able to now keep some of the expenses of that we've had to hire outside people to update and upkeep our irrigation system. So we've been able to do that. So that's been a benefit. The Minnesota State High School League has partnered informally with a new organization called Privet, which is fairly new, but I'll be actually sitting in on a webinar, and it's an online way to talk about some of the stuff that we might need to use technology with, but it's an online way for the high school league to track the eligibility forms that each student has to fill out each year for all of their activities. There's talk that this may be a requirement, so you can no longer turn in a paper document, which means that our school will probably have to provide access to computers for parents and students that may not have one at home to be able to do some of these things. There's also talk that this might be the first stage in parents having to watch videos prior to allowing their students to participate on the Why We Play curriculum, things that coaches do right now, which is I guess just something interesting that might be coming. It's not probably going to be a mandate for this year, I don't believe. Otherwise, we're really kind of in summer schedule mode, which means that I was already working on some things for registration today, and gearing up for fall to start. I don't know if anybody has any questions for me.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Donald Mayer, Building and Ground Supervisor.
Hello. Projects we have completed this summer, we've got 135 lockers here at the high school, all refurbished, ready for the students. We did have asbestos removed from both schools. Most of it was asbestos tile. There was a few asbestos pipes around the drains for the roofing company that we had removed. Right now we have tile being put in actually the elementary school library, carpet is in, the tile is in. They just have to put the edging around the walls yet. But, and Chad knows, we've got all the equipment back in. Chad did a lot of painting in there. It's looking pretty sharp. They have finished the tile in the kindergarten rooms. They are working on the ECSB rooms right now, and pretty well moving right along. Lazy Roofing is, they moved in last Thursday or Friday, brought all their product in, and they started roofs over the elementary school principal's office. Pretty well had that done today. They had the rock off and started by noon, they were putting rubber back on. Yule Company is supposedly coming this weekend to start on the units at the other school, and the following week they are supposed to work on the air handlers, the ECOs. And of course, the fence at the ballpark is still on hold. Material is ordered, but I talked to him tonight before I left, and he had said that maybe by next week he will get some of the fence up, if the product comes in.
And we're gonna go much further than the fence. We're gonna try to finish off that whole section on that road.
There were a couple of residents that were kind of concerned about that fence. Are we keeping them informed that we're waiting on product?
You know, I mean, that we prefer not to have to go door to door and start letting people know. You know, we've told the residents that we're gonna get it done as quick as we can. We're just waiting for the materials to come in, and hopefully it'll get done within, hopefully a couple weeks now that it'll be finished. I need to remind the board that even though we're gonna put that fence up, that road is not ours. People may park on that road if they wish to park on that road. We cannot prevent that. We can close gates, we can do all that. But in the end, there's always gonna be games in that JV site, which means there's gonna be parking on that road, and they can always walk around. There are openings in the fences, you know, down along that road, and they can park on that road and walk if they choose to walk that. I think certainly we're going to do everything we can to move them to the middle school parking lot, but we can't control that road.
Do we know where the entrances are going to be that are going to be along that street then?
Well, there'll be one right by the main place. There's one down further to the north of where it's at. There'll be one right by the baseball stadium itself. And then where that, well, it's not supposed to be a road, where that's used for the road between the two fields, you know, we'll put a gate up there, but, you know, we need to keep that access to that road, so it's gonna be more of a road gate. They could walk around that if they so chose to do that.
There will be a passage gate a little further down by the JV too. So. Other than that, tables came in for the cafeteria, which is gonna be nice. All the seats are attached to these. We got a couple out. We got hit by the big transformer blowout uptown. Our fire alarm system is going to be worked on Friday at the elementary school. We've got a little glitch in there where it won't charge, so health and safety will pay for that. And the other insurance project we had, well, that's been since beginning or end of school year. We had a power surge also that knocked out the emergency lights in the middle school, and that is finally, insurance is paying for that, so. Other than that, that's all I had right now.
So if they pay for the surge, would insurance pay for the first one they're gonna take out, health and safety? Did we ask them?
The second one was like, it's gonna cost $1,500 to put a new panel in the fire alarm system, while our deductible is.
Oh, I gotcha. I gotcha.
And even this is the same incident, you know.
Right. All right. Okay, next one is, thank you, Donnie. Next one is teacher negotiations. And I'd say we're actually doing pretty well. We're having regular meetings, which is a real positive thing. We're still working on some language issues. And we'll move to monetary things a couple of meetings from now. that's pretty much all we have to report there. And now for our leader, Superintendent Robert Hewitt is going to give us this administration report.
Yeah, just a few things. We're not only working on the teachers now, but I'm starting to send out emails to all my members on other negotiation committees, so do keep checking your emails, because that's the easiest way for me to try to set up meetings, but we've been asked to now start meeting with all of our leaders, so we will start to have meetings probably in July to meet with all our groups to start negotiations and moving that forward. In regards to that also, we're still working on the transportation one. When we start asking questions or a question comes up, it just takes a while to get an answer, and there's still a couple clarifications. Again, it is our hope that this will be an additional 3-year contract, not just the one that we haven't worked with, but 3 years more in addition to that. So hopefully, I'm really aiming to try to get it on the July meeting and be done with this thing. Believe me, I'd like that off my docket as much as anybody. But we're still working on it. I'm going to send a letter to the Minnesota Department of Ed. There's a thing that's called QComp. It does allow us to get $169 per student from in-state aid. And also, if we want to levy $91 for a student board-approved levy, we have the ability to do that. It's $269, and it allows us to do a number of things that are nice to be able to do. Right now, we're doing a lot of stuff with teacher evaluation, for instance. It gives us some money to be able to pay some of the people for some of those types of things. What the letter will do by signing that, unless the board has an issue with this and I need to bring more information, just by signing it, we'll send it to state, and all it's doing is really saying we're going to start to look at developing a plan. As that plan gets developed, we'll certainly bring it back to the board, inform the board on what we're looking at doing. At the same time, if it's something that we want to do, the state will get it. The state did come up with additional QComp dollars. They were out. That's one of the reasons that I hadn't been in a real big hurry to do this. But now it looks like they're going to start bringing more dollars back in, and it's kind of first come, first served now. They believe that there is a waiting list. They believe that the money that they're adding will pay for all of the students or the schools that are on that waiting list, and then some. But the sooner we move down this road, the better off we are as far as I'm concerned. I think it's a good deal for the district and everybody. So we'll continue to move forward. So unless the board has an issue, I will use my authority to sign that letter and send it to the board or to the Minnesota Department of Ed that says we're going to start moving forward with this. And then I'll need to work with some teachers and the administrators to come up with a plan that we think is effective and works well for us. And then we present more information to the board, and at the same time probably be sent it to MDE for their approval. It really isn't a thing for this next year. We'd really be aiming for the year after that. That would be the goal on that. Any questions on that particular piece? Otherwise, I'm going to send the letter in tomorrow. Okay. I should say I need also the teachers union to sign off with their president. So as soon as I get that signature, then we'll send that letter in. I'll start to send you a little bit of information. There's been some good things that have come through on the MSBA website as far as the legislature and how it's affecting school districts. I'm going to start sending you some. I think it'll be good reading for you. It'll just kind of update you on what the legislation has done for us. So look for that stuff. As I mentioned, health and safety and deferred maintenance is going to change 1 year from now. I think it's a good deal. I think it'll enable us to get some dollars and start planning bigger projects like roofing projects. We can save the money. We get so much per student at that point instead of what we're doing right now is applying for the money for health and safety. Deferred maintenance, we get so much, but this would allow us to plan, I think, for big projects down the road. So I think it'll be very helpful to everybody. Also, MSBA called me today. They are looking for a representative for their insurance. It's the Minnesota School Board Association Insurance Trust. There's a small stipend with it, but they told me to tell the board that nobody's going to get rich. But they're looking for a representative. It's a managed trust money that's left over. It's existing claims, 3 to 4 meetings a year, usually in the Twin Cities. But they try to match them with events like our MSBA Leadership Conference. That's where they might have one of those meetings during the year. They asked me because they knew that we were with Riverport right now. That's who we're running our insurance through. So if you're interested in this, I told them that I would mention it to the board members. But I said after that, I'll get back to them if somebody is interested. So if you're interested in this type of thing, I think it is a good committee. I think it's not a really heavy committee as far as expectations and workload that they would expect. So if you're interested, just give me a call and I'll set you up to contact the person that from MSBA that you might be willing to do that. With that, that's all I have.
Okay. Anything else from the board or administration? And we have a motion to adjourn. A motion by Lou to adjourn. Second by Mark. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no.